listening to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda. On this episode, we're talking about Government Cartoons, a track on the K-Off side from the 4-side release, where instead of sides A, B, C, and D, propaganda chose sides F, U, C, and K-Off for the double 7-inch Where Quality is Job Number 1, which was released by Recess Records in 1995. The note on the inside of the double 7-inch reads, 93, recorded live in front of people standing and watching us. Oliver Stone apparently would like to meet with us to discuss our theories. Don't burn the witch. This recording appears again on the 1998 Where Quantity is Job Number 1 compilation, which includes 30 tracks spanning from 1989 with bassist Scott Hopper through 1996. The note about the song on the inside of Where Quantity is Job Number 1 reads, Corefest 93 also. Again, the original version had about 8 more verses and 12 more choruses. This is the pared down version, omitting verse 3's chilling allegations of CIA involvement on the parts of Bob Hope, Brooke Shields, and Sammy Davis Jr. God rest his soul.
Oh my God, I love these notes. It's crazy.
Corefest was a 90s music festival in Winnipeg. Garbage Hill served as the site of the Independent Music Festival and Corefest for a number of years in the 1990s. It was a 3-main-day music festival with local acts, 65 acts in total, and it cost $1 to go.
Yeah, exactly. It's free, basically. The
$1
band free too. Yeah.
There were also prelude days and an after party day at the West End Cultural Center in Winnipeg. And there's some great live footage of propaganda playing at Corefest 96 on YouTube, which we highly recommend.
Awesome. Well, I mean, this is such an interesting song. But, you know, the title of this record, so we're talking about this double 7-inch here, Where Quality is Job Number 1, which features that fantastic picture of George with a mohawk in 1996, where he's wearing DOA, GBH, COC buttons, and ACDC button. But it's just such a fascinating record. And I was thinking about the cover, Where Quality is Job Number 1. And I was like, I've heard about this before somewhere else. So I just went in and I Googled it. And obviously this record pops up a ton, but it's also a reused slogan from 1980s Ford Motor Company slogan, because they had Where Quality is Job Number 1, where Quality is Job 1 as their sales pitch from 1981 to 1998. So apparently this was just like, you know, bashing around in my subconscious thinking like for years and years, but I knew I'd heard it before. But like the pitch was developed by a famous advertising guy named Robert Cox, who also worked with Saturn and Mercedes and helped with Nancy Reagan's famous anti-drug slogan, Just Say No, and All Aboard for Amtrak. So now I'm thinking about how interesting it would be to be a super rich dude and be seen as a genius for coming up with little slogans that are 2 to 5 words long. And the quality slogan was used by Ford for a long time. So can you imagine getting rich off of coming up with slogans like All Aboard? You know what I mean? Like what a life.
Yes, I could. I can imagine it.
Man, you would have to be the luckiest person on earth to have that happen to you or be very well connected.
Right.
But anyway, so that dude's apparently like a legend, but this is such a goofy record and it's such a delight. You know, according to Discogs, there are like 10 different variants of vinyl for this record, which is like almost like a full length's worth of material. And it appears pretty much nowhere else except for Kill Bill Harkus, which appears later as The Only Good Fascist is a Very Dead Fascist. But I have a couple copies of this record. Have you ever seen one of these before?
I've not. I don't own it.
This is such a funny record, man. Yeah. And I'm so excited. Hopefully we get to talk to Todd from Recess Records someday about like putting this thing together because it's so weird. But it's a double 7-inch and every pack has two different colors in each pack.
Hmm.
And the record sleeves are so tight that I don't even keep my records inside the sleeve because it's such a pain in the butt to get them in and out of the sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
And it really just plays into the joke of where quality is job number one, because I can't even get the damn things in and out of the envelope, you know? But the liner notes are not precise within the release. Songs appear in the liner notes that aren't on the record. There are no center labels on the record, so it doesn't tell you what side it's on. Like there are these weird etchings and drawings. Mine have penises etched all over them
Of course.
On the middle of it.
Of
So like,
course, yeah.
I'm just picturing these guys like sitting around a table, just like, and just drawing penises all over these records. I guess that's how etchings are done. I'm not 100% sure, you know those etchings.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So it's really crazy. But so anyway, the liner notes say White, Proud, and Stupid is on this. It says Fine Day is
Mhm.
on this, but they're not. And there aren't lyrics in the booklet. There are just these weird notes about every song. And hilariously, there's also like a pressing issue with the records where at the end of a few songs, it goes into an infinite loop where you have to manually move the arm of the record player to the next song or it won't skip to the next song. And so like I have two different variants of this double 7-inch and I have to move the arm on several songs to go to the next song. So like there's like a pressing error, but I think it's on purpose. Like it's like a fabulous prank. And I bet when they sent these things out, they got so many complaints and people demanding refunds. Like I can't even imagine. Like it's just so hilarious.
It reminds me of what Chris was talking about on his Patreon podcast about how the band has pretty much intentionally made every single decision specifically not in what is going to
Yeah.
be what is most lucrative or a business minded
Yeah.
decision that will benefit the band in any way, like definitely toying with the label and or the listeners here.
Yeah, and like you can't tell what order the track listing goes. Like you don't know what is track 1, what is track 7, like there's no labels. It's hard to tell what side is which. So you're really going through this thing and it's like a puzzle that you have to put together. But I seriously just imagine these guys putting these records together in like the 90s and just laughing their butts off the whole time about all the little practical jokes that are like built into this thing. Like, hey, what if we make the sleeves so tight that people won't even be able to get the records in and out? Because every time I would pull this record out to play it the last several months, I was like, man, I can't even get these back in there. And I was like shoving them in there. I was like, I'm going to damage these covers if I keep doing this. So I stopped putting them in the sleeve entirely and I just leave the liner notes inside the sleeve and I keep the two records in those little slip jackets like in the plastic bag. But it's such a hilarious release and I'm so glad we're finally talking about it. But I'm honestly surprised that the label and the band were even able to stay organized. And I assume the reason there's two different colored discs in every set is because without a center label and saying what side is which, if you had a bunch of records show up that were all black with no center labels, you would have no idea which was record 1 and which one was record 2.
Right.
So like I'd imagine that the only way you could keep it straight is if every variant had two different colored discs so you know that you're putting in one brown and one clear yellow into that envelope, you know what I mean? Otherwise there's no way to know. So it's
That
just
would be
hilarious.
a painstaking process to have to check whatever is imprinted on the inside to double check if it's disc 1 or disc 2.
Absolutely. So as far as I can tell, there are 10 pressings, 10 variants of this album. So the vinyl double 7-inches, we have a brown and clear yellow variant, and I have this one. I have the clear yellow brown, and my brown is almost like a splatter vinyl because it has flecks of green and red, so it essentially looks like puke. Then there's a black and baby blue version. There is a green and gray version. There is a green and black version. There's a gray and black version, which I also have. I have 2 copies of this. There's a pink and black. There's a violet and black, a brown and solid yellow, a light purple and mustard, and a mustard and black. So, what an odd and hilarious release. And this is like the prime example I think of when Chris told me in an interview that he and I did elsewhere that humor was an essential ingredient to this band. And interestingly, in some correspondence that I had with Todd in the past several months, he mentioned that Government Cartoons is one of his favorite songs from the time before he was in the band. So this is a personal Todd Kowalski favorite, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, so let's get to the guest, Greg. Who did you talk to this week?
I'm really pumped about this guest, not only because I really like our guest's music, but also because our guest has a brand new album out. But we promised to do every song for this podcast. You know, whenever we started this, we're going to talk about every Propagandhi song. And when I reach out to guests, the way that it goes is I send them a big list of songs for an upcoming list of tentative episodes that we're thinking about doing. And that list is getting drastically smaller, obviously, with 40 episodes behind us already. But you can't even imagine my glee when the fantastic Mikey Erg selected Government Cartoons. This is one of those songs that I wasn't sure that we'd get a guest for. And I'm not saying every song needs a guest. We do guestless episodes every now and then. But I like having guests. I think that it's super fun to have people on and tell their stories of why they love Propagandhi so much. But I just assumed always the Government Cartoons would be a guestless episode. But Mikey Erg has played in many, many bands, including the Ergs, his solo projects. He also plays drums in Warriors with Lauren Denizio, who was our anchorless guest. So it's cool to have Mikey on as a guest because he has a brand new record out right now as we're recording this episode. So it was really cool to chat with him as he builds up his brand new release that he's really excited about. And I freaked out a little bit when he picked Government Cartoons. So we're going to get to our chat with Mikey Erg, and then we'll be back to discuss the song afterwards. So please enjoy our conversation.
When Fred and Bonnie Rubble in Jackson made me in my own home.
Hey, it's Nate here from Japan. Great job, guys. You want to know about where quantity is, right? First of all, I love like the etchings on the record, the stupid liner notes. I love that. You know, it makes them sound like they were dumb teenagers, like me and the rest of my friends were, you know, when we heard it at the time. But it also shows, you know, how much they evolved musically and I guess politically, which is, you know, what all of their newer albums do, when contrasting them to their previous ones. I also love the live banter, back and forth. And yeah, Die for the Flag.
Mikey Erg, welcome to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about Propagandhi.
Hello, good to be here.
It's wonderful to have you here, Mikey. So before we dive into our conversation tonight, I wonder if you can just start us off by just sort of giving like a broad introduction of who you are to our audience in case they are hearing about you for the first time on this podcast.
Well, my name is Mikey. My punk name is Mikey Erg. I've been playing in bands for probably about a little over 20 years now. The Erg started in 2000, and that's like graduated high school in 99, and that's kind of when I started joining bands and just touring and playing music all the time. So yeah, been playing, and I've played in a number of different bands.
So many. I have like a list here. It's like the Dopamines and Star Fucking Hipsters and Warriors and the Ergs. And I'm sure that there are so many more, you know? Like
there are.
You're like the Ringer.
I wish I kept better track. Yeah, I did. I've done a lot of like, hey, our drummer can't make it for these 2 shows. Can you fill in? I've done a lot of like fill-in stuff.
I love it. I love it. What are your current projects? What are you like currently doing to stay occupied musically?
Right now, I guess Warriors is probably like the most like touringist band I do. And I play in a band in Brooklyn called Early Riser. And me and my friend Fid, who used to be in the Measure essay with Lauren, who I know you've had on. We have a project that doesn't play live much, but we have a lot of recordings called Hat Rabbits. And I do a lot of solo stuff. And there's probably a few that aren't springing to mind. This, the last year has just been nuts. I don't even know what.
Yeah,
music, I don't know what music is anymore.
Does your brain work anymore? Like, I feel like at most times my brain is on the verge of just shutting down, and I'm just like going into like a full Hulu binge, like for the rest of my life. Like that's what I'm just going to be from now on. It's just completely useless, just watching Letterkenny like on repeat forever.
I've absolutely have felt like I used to use my brain to like learn songs and stuff, but now.
Oh, God. Well, you have kept a little busy because I noticed that in the last week or week and a half, a pre-order came out for a brand new Mikey Erg solo record. Tell me a little bit about this new record that you have coming out the week after next.
Yeah, I made a record. Yeah, I just kind of in the middle of this. In the middle of last year, the band that I'd been on tour in February, right before the pandemic happened, I got a tour in, which was me playing in 4 different bands, and we did like a 2-week tour, and and it was 4 bands. There were 5 people in the van, so we all kind of played in each other's bands. I played in every band. It was fun, and the band I had on that trip was me, my friend Fid, who I just mentioned played in that band Hat Rabbits, and Chris Pierce, who recorded a lot of the Erg stuff and just is like a producer engineer in New Jersey. We were the Mikey Erg band on that tour, and we were also Doc Hopper, which is Chris Pierce's like songwriting project, and so the 3 of us just kind of started getting together once a month and just kind of just to be able to play loud music again together, and like we just like mask up and get into a room and just play. And so one of these times we were kind of getting together, and I was like, I should probably write some songs. Maybe we can do a little recording. And then I just wrote like 8 songs, and we recorded them, and they became an album.
Where did you where did you record all of it? Were you in a studio, or did you just record it all yourself?
Chris Pierce has his own studio in New Brunswick.
Nice.
So we'd kind of just get together and jam, and then it just ended up being an album.
Awesome.
It was an unintentional album, but it came out, once I wrote the songs, I was like, I think these are really good. I'm going to put these out.
I mean, and like the new single out recently is wonderful. Did you play everything on the record? Was it one of those kinds of records, or did you have collaborators?
No, Fid played bass and Chris played drums. Yeah, it was the lineup that did the tour, and the tour was sounding cool. It was like, just we just kind of threw it together, and it just was like a really punk rock sounding tour. We were doing like this, Going to Pasalacpa by Green Day every night, so we recorded that too and just put that on the record. And
awesome. So
yeah, it was just like I just love the way it sounded on stage. I was like, I want to document this this lineup of the band,
Well, yeah, and like the sound of the record, I think, is like you're doing something a little differently than you did on Wax Built Castles, right? Like you're
absolutely, it's definitely
return sort of.
Yeah, when I make records under the name Mikey Erg, and I think it's kind of rad that every record's kind of different, like I don't want every record to sound the same.
Definitely.
And this was, once I was listening to the playback of this record, and I thought to myself, this was like kind of the most Ergsy stuff that I've done in a while.
Nice.
So I thought that was kind of cool to kind of go back to the old sound.
Well, as somebody who was a massive, massive fan back in the day of Upstairs, Downstairs, I am particularly excited about this new record.
Oh, thank you.
And, the new record has a mystery color vinyl, which I would imagine is sold out now on the pre-order. But, like, what's the reception been like so far? Are you pretty stoked on it? People seem like they're ready.
Yeah, it's been really cool. It's been really great. We put it up, I think in an hour, the pre-orders were sold out or something, like 90 minutes or something, which is, nuts. And people have been really into the single, and so, yeah, it's been really cool.
That is absolutely wonderful. I was listening, like I said, I listened to the Ergs a lot back in the day, and like I always loved your band, and I saw your name pop up everywhere as members of other bands over the last, many years. But the way I sort of rediscovered and started digging back into your work beyond playing drums in Warriors was your Propagandy cover that you did for Bridge City of Resisting Tyrannical Government.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And had I discovered that video a little sooner, I probably would have just had you as a guest on that episode. But oh well. We're going to do government cartoons, which is
yes.
a curveball. You blew me out of the water with a curveball, which is awesome. But why did you choose Resisting Tyrannical Government to do for a cover that was going to be seen by thousands and thousands of people? I mean, that's like a pretty bold selection for, to do on a video that, a lot of people are going to see.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I remember I would play solo shows, and I do, a bunch of Erg songs. This was like when I started playing solos, probably like 2011, 2012, something like that. And I do Erg songs. People were into it, and then I'd always kind of try to throw a cover in every now and then. But like my idea of throwing a cover in was like, I'm gonna do this Steely Dan song that no one cares about that I like playing or whatever, just like random weird covers. And then I did some touring with Dave Hawes.
Yeah.
And he would play his songs and people would be into it, but then he'd do Trusty Chords by Hot Water, and everybody just went ape shit. And I was like, I gotta throw in like an old punk cover that people are going to just go crazy for. So, and I just always have loved that song. That song is like the hidden kind of pop gem on that record.
I totally agree. 100%.
Refusing to Be a Man is the obvious like awesome pop song on that record. But Resisting was just always loved that song. So I started throwing it in the set and started doing it as like how I do it on that video, just like kind of make it a singer-songwriter-y song. And it didn't get the response I was, because it's a different take on the song. So I've had a lot of people come up to me saying like, I didn't even know what song that was until you got to the end of it, and then it just clicked.
Huh.
So like it didn't end up getting the the like everybody's gonna sing along to this one response, but it ended up being just like I pretty much did it at every show, and it was just it was a song I really enjoyed playing, and by the end of it, people were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that was the song that you were doing."
Oh my God, because like I was like, if you started playing that in front of me in a room, I would be like, no shit, like this is the best. And I'm really surprised that it didn't get that response because that's such an iconic record.
But it's also, I think I was expecting it to be like the Trusty Chords of my set when it's not the anthem that Trusty Chords is either.
You're right there. That's an interesting comparison as well, because Trusty Chords is so sing song. It is like so sing along.
And in my mind, it was like, I need that old punk cover that everybody is just going to go crazy for.
Yeah, nice.
If I would have done like, I don't even know, if I would have done a version of Nation States or something, it might have been like, I don't know.
Man, because like Nation States was so prevalent on those comps.
Right.
Like that one. Yeah, maybe. Interesting. Well, that's something to test on the road down the line.
Yeah.
Maybe you can mix it up and see what you can come up with for that.
Definitely.
That would be sweet. Well, Mikey, how did you find Propagandy? Do you remember like the origin story of how you discovered the band in the first place?
Yes. And so since we just brought up Nation States, I got into punk probably 94. I think I feel like Dookie and seeing the Salvation video on 120 minutes.
Me too.
So, 94, I probably was buying my first punk CDs.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and you know how I'm sure it's like this for everybody, but when you get into punk, it's all just kind of like this whole new world opens up, and it all kind of blends together.
It's like a tidal wave that just crashes on your head,
So like I kind of feel like that tidal wave didn't happen until, I was into punk kind of. I went to the 1996 Warped Tour.
Mm.
And right before that, I'd gotten, I think, Punk-O-Rama 1 on vinyl.
Mm.
So I knew of NoFX, I knew of Down by Law, Pennywise.
Yeah.
So, and I knew these bands were playing Warped Tour, but I went to Warped Tour with my friend John, my high school friend John. He liked 311, and I liked I loved Goldfinger a lot. So he was psyched about seeing 311. I was psyched about seeing Goldfinger. We get to Warped Tour. Neither of those bands are playing. All we saw was in the ad in Spin magazine that said those two bands, amongst a million others, were playing. Neither of those bands were playing the Asbury Park Warped Tour. But I had a leg up. I had already had like this comp that had a few of these bands on it. That was cool. So we're just kind of wandering around, taking in Warped Tour. It was awesome. Someone hands me Survival of the Fattest. This is the smartest thing
Ever.
that Fat Records ever could have done. It's just had people giving away Survival of the Fattest.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take a free CD, of course.
Yeah.
Get home and, that comp, which I'm probably most people my age, that comp changed my life.
Yeah.
And on that comp, I was a fan of NoFX, but I didn't particularly want to hear 16 bands that sounded like NoFX.
Yeah.
So the bands that stood out to me were Snuff, Bracket, Propaganda.
Nice.
Propagandy.
Either way. we don't draw a line in the sand on this show,
right.
on the pronunciation.
Which is, it only because I know that hearing Jord on like this radio station IDs for Quantity is job number one.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, is that how you say it? And it only like the Ganda propaganda, like that syllable. That was the first time that actually had occurred to me.
Same.
That
Me too. Yeah, me too. I had to think about it like propaganda whenever I heard them say
right.
it, so that really kind of reshifted how I say it. And then they say it like that, and then we just automatically shifted into saying that on the show. But we don't draw any lines in the sand.
Yeah. But so that you hear nation states and you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
This is
absolutely
totally different. And yeah, that was it. And then the reason that government cartoons fits into the narrative is I credit Propaganda with making me seek out Recess Records, because we found out, and this was like early internet. Joe, who I play in the Ergs with, he had the internet at his house. I didn't have the internet at my house, so I would go to his house, and we would somehow we just found out that there was like a tape. I think the Yup tape existed.
Yeah.
And these like couple 7-inches, aside from these 2 LPs that we still had to find.
Yep.
So we that was how I found out about Recess Records, which really, once you get into, that's when the real tidal wave starts happening.
For sure.
Oh, there are these labels I've never heard of that are putting out, Recess had 10, 15 releases at that point, and all bands I'd never heard of. What are these? I got to check all these out.
You got to get I Spy, got to get FYP, you got to get it all. And here's my copies of Quality is job number one. This is one of the double 7s with it's the gray and the black copies. I've got a transparent yellow and a gold brownish one in the other room.
That's the one I have.
Yeah.
I have. I think is there is transparent yellow and gold the same package?
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Something like that. I mean, it's like there's several different variations, and
Yeah.
I love going through Discogs and like looking at all of it now, and it's just like
It's-
such a fun way to kill some time.
It's so funny to like, because I've since become friendly with Todd from Recess, and it's just so funny to think about, like, how there's so many different variations of the cover of the colors of vinyl.
Yeah, and the 10-inch as well has all those different the covers. I mean, they did so many of them. Did he ever tell you any stories about that?
I'm sure we may have talked about it, but I don't remember any specifics. But I do remember that was one of the things we were mail ordering from Recess, and I think we ended up writing Recess and saying, "Hey, do you have any copies of this 10-inch? Because we'd like to get a copy." And they had records but no covers, so they just sent us, I think for either free or for like $5 or something, they sent us the I'd Rather Be Flag Burning 10-inch without a cover.
Weird.
Because I think they were out of covers, but they somehow had a bunch of records. But yeah, it just got me into mail ordering shit from all these small punk labels, and that opens up a whole world for you.
And I think that I was listening to an interview with Fat Mike recently. I think it was on the Going Off Track podcast with Benny from Gaslight, and he was talking about giving away those comps at on those Warped Tours and everything. And he's like, and we just went out and we just gave everything away, and that's how we built the label, by giving away free CDs to anybody whose hands we could put it into. And
it fucking worked. I mean, me and all of my friends, and I'm sure there were thousands of other, and I think they gave away the Honest Don's Welcome Wagon comp, or that might have been the next year, but
yeah, I got a free Welcome Wagon CD at the 98 tour.
Okay, yeah, so it was a couple years later, but
absolutely.
But it's such a brilliant way to, I mean, because there were all of a sudden there were 15 new bands that I'd never heard of that were all great.
Oh, totally. And then you have to go and you have to get all those records. So you've been at this for a long time now. So like, where did you go from there? Like whenever you discovered the band in like 94, 95, 96, like what was your journey of being a fan? Like, have you been on the Propaganda wagon the entire time, like throughout like the rest of their career? Did you wax and wane in interest over the years? Tell me about your journey.
Yeah, I was a huge fan of, the first two records, and of course, and then Today's Empires drops, and I was already a fan of I Spy.
Yeah.
So I was very excited to hear what. Yeah, I loved John, and I'd ordered the Weaker Than stuff as soon as it was available from G7.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, it was a bummer to not have him in the band, but I was very excited to hear what Propaganda was going to sound like with Todd. And then, I mean, that's just a fucking game changer of a record. Like, perfect. And then it's funny because this week leading up to this, I've been revisiting everything, and I when Potemkin came out, I remember buying it. I was on tour. I remember listening to it, and just, I don't know why, not into it. Don't understand why. It's not that different. But wasn't into that. But then they brought me back with supporting cast. and then I'm in ever since. And so I went back and listened to everything, and I'm still, I just do not understand why Potemkin is it's my least favorite still for some reason. I don't know why.
Which is so interesting, because I feel like that's either your like hands down most favorite, or it is hands down your least favorite. Like that is like a record that's so hot and cold.
Okay, so that's good to know. That's good to know, because I wondered if there was something wrong with me.
No,
but if it is a polarizing record for whatever reason, who knows? I mean, because I listened to it 3 days ago with a certainly I feel like a more open mind than I would have had when it came out in 2004 or 5 or
Yeah.
And yeah, I was just like, I still don't like this as much as I like Victory Lap and supporting cast, and like.
Yeah, it's such an interesting record. When Chris talks about the Potemkin years and on his podcast on Patreon, and it's so interesting because he talks about like the nadir, like the dip in interest,
Right.
and like it was like being like flatly panned and things like that, and then they started joking around like, oh, we're the North Korea of punk and things like that. So I mean, it's an absolutely hilarious story, but that record actually recently recouped all of its expenses. And finally turned a profit 15 years after it came out, which is pretty sweet.
That's hilarious.
Well, and so, I always love hearing stories about people telling their memories of seeing Propaganda live, touring. You've probably got both. I'd imagine over the years of being in bands and touring and being on the road as a Propaganda fan that you have, probably seen them live before, maybe run across them socially a little bit here and there, or possibly seen like any like Propaganda adjacent bands like John K. Samson, Winter Wheat, the Weaker Thans. Do you have any like cool live stories or interactions with the band that you have that sort of maybe stand out?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few. Just with Propaganda, like they played Best Friends Day in Richmond, Virginia one year, and that was just that was always an incredible time. And I remember I was watching them from the side of the stage, and they break into Hard Times by Cro-Mags.
Oh yeah.
And Dave Whitty from Municipal Waste is like, come on, let's go. And like he wanted me to stage dive with him, and I had just kind of, every time I stage dove, something happened. I like broke my rib a couple times. I just ended up falling wrong, and like I'm always worried I'm gonna hurt someone if I stage dive. So I was like, no, I'm cool. And he was just like, he just gave me 2 fingers and then just stage dove, and that was a fun Propaganda live moment. So many. The Ergs actually, when we first got back together, we played the 2016 fest, I think. And we played directly before Propaganda.
Nice.
And it was insane because I was just like, I have all this nervous energy because I got to play, and then I can't wait to see them play. And I was like, kind of wondering if we'd get to shoot the shit backstage or anything, but they're totally in like, we're getting ready to play mode when when they're about to play. So didn't end up really interacting all that much, but it was very cool to play with them.
Nice. How many times have you seen them total? Like, do you have a tally in your head?
Not many, actually. Because I feel like I wonder if this is true, because I feel like when we got into them, they kind of just didn't play the U.S.
Right. They were not around a lot. Because I got into them in late 97, early 98, and it took me until 2001 when they were supposed to be on a U.S. tour in support of Empires, and then 9/11 happened, and they were in Kansas City on the night of 9/11, and then they went straight to the border instead of coming to St. Louis on September 12th. And so I missed out until like 2006 or something like that, when they played the new Creepy Crawl in St. Louis. I saw them after Beeve had joined the band. So my first time was post Potemkin, when Beeve came out pre-supporting cast.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that tour. I must have, the New York show was at Wetlands Preserve in New York, and they did, I think it sold out so quickly they added an afternoon show.
Oh, are you talking about the 2001 double?
I'm sorry,
the matinee one.
I meant to say, I saw the tour that you didn't see.
Gotcha.
Because
Aaron from Marathon was on the show recently, and he was talking about seeing that Wetland show, and he regretted that they didn't go to both shows. He only went to one.
So
yeah, he was the evening show, and he's like, "Why didn't I go to the afternoon show too?"
Well, my funny story about that, and I don't know what the fuck I was thinking, but I was at the afternoon show, and Chris, a great show, and Chris says on the mic, he's like, if any of you suckers bought tickets to both shows, you're an idiot because we're gonna do the same set. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I can skip the second show. And then, of course, apparently it was completely different. So I didn't go to the second show.
Oh, Chris.
Idiot. But I mean, that was just getting to see Propaganda live for the first time after, I love the new record, and just, years of just worshiping these songs and not getting to see them live. It was perfect.
Nice.
And then I think they played at the Metro in Chicago during a Riot Fest that I was playing. So I got to see them there. That was probably like 2011.
Awesome.
And then I saw them at Best Friends Day. And the Fest thing.
Was the Best Friends Day one with Warriors? 'Cause I think Lauren mentioned that show on the Anchorless episode.
I think maybe that was probably back when the Measure was around.
Okay.
And we didn't play that show, but I think we played that year.
Nice.
And that show was crazy because it was Propaganda, and Andrew WK was the headliner, solo
party.
But like solo,
with his little piano.
Yeah. But he was doing like, he had backing
that.
Tracks and shit. It was awesome. It was really cool.
I've seen him do that. I love that so much.
Yeah.
Oh, so when Lauren was here, Lauren mentioned that Warriors had done some touring with John K. Sampson.
Yeah.
Do any memories jump out at you about your time on the road with John?
Yeah. I mean, it was great. I've been a huge fan of them and him for years. I got to see. I've seen Weaker Thans a million times because they did a lot more touring.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely saw them play. They did the Sub City tour, which was right after Follow had gotten issued in the States.
Yeah, it's like 99.
And I saw
that too.
Yeah, I think they were like either first or I mean, they were early on the bill.
Tiny band. They were like,
yeah,
they had no following then in the States.
Yeah, and I've seen them. There used to be a club in New York called Brownies that is one of my favorite places I've ever seen shows, and I feel like they would come through once or twice a year, and I'd see them a million times there. They're so great. But getting to tour with, I remember Lauren. I guess they didn't want it to be for some reason it couldn't be full band. But Lauren wanted something other than just a solo thing, so I played a cajon, like a little like drum beatbox that you sit on. And but then I remember Lauren telling me that it's pretty much going to be the Weaker Thans. It's like essentially the last lineup of the Weaker Thans minus one member, because Jason Tate was on drums, and I was essentially going on tour with the Weaker Thans, which was kind of an insane thing to think about.
Love it.
And then we would do our opening set, and then I would just stand on the side of the stage and essentially like sob for their entire set, because it was just getting to watch them. And these were like kind of smaller, like the show we played in DC is a tiny club called Songbird, and I just remember like kind of crouching, like there was nowhere to sit, there was nowhere to even set up on the stage, and I just kind of like tucked myself into a corner on the stage and just like with a beer in my hand and just like my head against the wall, just like sobbing at all these like wonderful, beautiful songs that were being played to me.
Just soak it in.
Yeah.
It's those moments that like where you're in a room with a lot of people and it's so utterly perfect
Yeah.
that you stop and you think, you're like, wow, like I'm not going to have many moments like this in my life. I really need to just soak this in and let this wash over me, because these moments are very, very fleeting as far as like the vastness of human existence.
That's exactly the feeling that I just felt I need to take this in, because this is just emotionally insane for me right now. And I just need, it was a great tour, and then they were all so cool. And I remember going to I never think of myself as like, oh, I'm sure I made an impact on that guy, whatever. But I remember going to see John do a solo set in New York a few months later, and just went up to him after the show at the merch table, and he's like, "What? Next time, get in touch with me. Like, we'll hang out.
We'll get coffee."
I was like, I didn't think to do that. Sorry.
Well, now you know.
Yeah, now I know.
Now you know, and you have to, because the invitation is out there, dangling.
It's out there, yeah. And
after this,
who doesn't want to spend a few hours with John K. Sampson? I mean,
seriously, and after this year of having contact with virtually no human beings, besides doing what you and I are doing right now, I mean, this is like the most social thing I've done this entire day. You know?
I was looking so forward to this, because I was like, I get to like hang. This is essentially me hanging out at a bar with the bud and just
hell yeah, telling stories.
Shit.
I have a Bell's here. I have a Bell's Hazy India Pale Ale. So
I've been wanting to try. My favorite beer in the world
nice.
is a Bell's Two Hearted, and I've heard about their
They're super nice. You should totally check this out. What do you got there? What are you sipping on?
I've got a Lustra from a brewery in Pittsburgh called Dancing Gnome.
Wonderful. I will have to go there next time I go to Pittsburgh for a show.
You definitely. Every beer I've had, it's mostly IPAs. They're all incredible.
Nice. Because I live in Buffalo, so it's only 3 hours to go down to Pittsburgh if there's a really good show down there. I just pop down, because why the heck not? So
why not?
We're getting vaccines in April, allegedly. So we'll see how it goes.
I've been watching the news all day. I've been watching these
music
hearings. But yeah, I'm just like, please just put it in my veins.
Dude,
give me 4 doses.
I will show up
if you're not using any.
I will show up. I'll go to a Tim Hortons parking lot at 3:35 in the morning, and I will let them give it to me ocularly through my eyeball, if that's what it took. Give it to me.
If that's all they can do, then that's all they can do. I'll take it.
Oh my God. All right. Well, Mikey, when I reached out to you, like I said earlier, you threw me a curveball, and I sent you the list of songs that I was thinking about looking for guests for. And you said, I want government cartoons from the Where Quality is Job Number One double 7-inch on Recess Records, which we've talked about a little bit. So I was very, very pleased with this curveball, because this is the kind of song that we want to do episodes on for this podcast, because it's obviously part of the Propaganda canon, but it is very overlooked as far as like their modern discography goes.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about what this 7-inch, this double 7-inch, the whole thing, what this package of songs means to you? Tell me about this 7-inch.
Yeah, well, like I said, it was pretty much, it was a very, if not the first, it was a very early mail order, this weird 7-inch from a label I'd never heard of, because it has a band that I just found out about on it. And that's the to think about now, how this quote unquote big band, you get this 7-inch and it's just like live songs and there's them fucking around for two records.
Yeah.
One song is just like Chris playing a guitar solo for like 30 seconds. And I think I realized that I only recently when I went back and revisited it, kind of, and like looked at I haven't looked at the Discogs entry for this record ever until a couple days ago, and realized that I played it all wrong. Like I didn't realize that, because I don't even think the labels had anything on them. I think they were just
no songs listed on the records. It's crazy.
So the CD. So I grew up in a recording studio. My dad owned a recording studio, so we had like CD burning. We had just a deck that was a CD burner. So I would just take my records and I would just burn CDs of my 7-inches so I could listen to them. And the CDR burn I made of that 7-inch, I thought Government Cartoons was the first song on the.
Oh, nice.
So that side was the first 2 songs of my disc. So now it's only recently that I realized it's the last 2 songs, apparently, I guess, on the actual 7-inch. But, the Government Cartoons Leg Hold Trap side is just such a great. You just get to hear them fucking around in between.
Yeah.
And then these 2 incredible. It was a toss up between this and Leg Hold Trap because they're both incredible songs.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I don't know. It took me years to realize that I guess John was in Toothpick Hercules.
Yeah.
But I can't find any information on this band, whether they even had a demo tape out or like I can't. I'd love to hear more Toothpick Hercules songs.
And I haven't gone there yet as far as like researching much myself because we haven't done Leg Hold Trap yet.
Right.
But that's something that I'm interested in as well. And I'm assuming you came across this, where Quantity is job number 1 compilation. Was this a big part of your early days as well?
That was because that came out. I feel didn't that came out like kind of in the early 2000s.
It was 98, I think.
Okay.
So it was.
But I'd already had.
Yeah, it was pre-Empires.
I'd already had most of the stuff that I already had the I Spy split.
Right.
And the double 7-inch.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean I love that record, but
yeah,
a lot of it wasn't new to me.
Yeah. This double 7-inch is really a wild ride. I mean, like whenever I listen to it in my office a couple of doors over, I just laugh my head off because it's such a hilarious album. I mean, and I consider it like almost like a full record. I mean, and there's so many songs on this thing. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm trying to is Bent's on there too.
Yeah,
right?
Bent's on there, and Hidden Curriculum.
Hidden Curriculum.
Oh my God, it's so good. And then there's Support Gun Control, Kill a Hunter, Kill Bill Harkus, like the early iteration of Only Good Fascist. Okay.
But yeah, that record, I blame Quality's job number 1 for me getting into buying every band's 7-inches and just finding all these like cool little like hidden gems in a band's discography.
Were these things that you kept around over the years, or did you wind up hawking stuff? Because I have sold so many records that like I am so furious about. Like I sold that Avail Live 10-inch, and I think about that freaking record all the time.
Yeah.
Like, did you keep all this stuff around, or was this something that you've like? Do you have some regrets? Any record regrets?
Well, I've pretty much kept everything around. When I in the like 2010 or so, I started doing. When I pretty much joined every single band I could, I was just on the road for literally 9-10 months out of the year.
Yeah.
So I kept a lot of things just in storage at in my mom's basement, and I think over the years, like things have gotten kind of thrashed, and especially the 7-inches because I just didn't have a place to. They were just kind of in boxes.
Yeah.
I got to go check out and see what I still still have and what I don't have. But I never got rid of anything, but I assume that some of it is just unplayable at this point.
So what was it about Government Cartoons that jumped out at you on the list? Because, like I said, threw me for a loop. Tell me about this particular song.
Well, like I said, it was. I loved it on the 7-inch, and I think I mean, it's so. It's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got that metal intro.
Yeah.
And then it goes into a skate punk verse and then a pop punk chorus. It's just a perfect song.
Yep.
And I don't really understand. I assume it could have been on How to Clean Everything. I assume it's probably from the era of songs that, or the pre How to Clean Everything era.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder why they didn't do a version of it for that record.
I know it really is a shame that there's only the live recording of it, as far as I know. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe I'm overlooking something egregiously.
I've never heard another. When they put out that recovered EP and I could finally hear a studio version of Like Hold Trap, I remember being elated.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, it's hard to. The fact that Government Cartoons is supposedly a live recording is crazy because it sounds pretty fucking great.
Yeah.
You can hear everything.
You know, and if you think about a song like This Might Be Satire on How to Clean Everything, like I would love for Government Cartoons to be on How to Clean Everything in place of This Might Be Satire.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, or that, or like
it's so much
even
better.
even like Fuck Machine or something. Like I feel like it could be on that. It could have been on that record.
I completely agree, 100%. I was listening to this today. I was like, wow, this is actually a really freaking clever song.
Yeah,
the lyrics are so good. The song totally rips, and there's hooks for days in this song. So let's talk about the music for a second. You know, like that hooky riff that dangles in the middle of the song. It's like Under the Human Race lyric. Like,
yeah,
it's so.
And you have John's like backing vocals.
It's so earwormy. Like,
yeah.
What are your thoughts on like the composition and performance musically of this song?
Well, that was the thing that hooked me. Is just it's, you know, because that I feel like that's ultimately what hooks me first. Is it's got to be a catchy tune. It's got to be a like I listened to your episode with Sue, and when she was just like it's got to have some pop in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's where I'm at. It's like it's got to have some pop, and then, but then also it's just the way the way he's explaining how they've got us from day one with the fucking cartoons we watch.
Yeah.
It's so hilarious. It's a hilarious song about something that it's like you guys really got to fucking think about this.
Yeah.
How they've always had you. And then it's this wonderful pop song that you're just like singing, you get to sing along to.
Dude, it's almost got like a Blink Damn It riff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Absolutely.
That dangly, hooky guitar riff, it just draws you in. And then I was just like walking around my house and going, just like humming along to it. And I was like, holy smokes, they really had something amazing here that kind of got overlooked in the broader canon of the band's catalog, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's totally a hidden gem.
And that's the thing. It's if this was on How to Clean Everything, it probably would have been on the Fat Music comp instead of Anti-Manifesto. It's just like such a good song.
You never know. You know, and it also, the song makes me want to like go back and rewatch everything that I mindlessly consumed as a kid, and I didn't really realize the conditioning that was going on. Like talking about how, you know, Mr. Slate in the Flintstones, actually he's super rich and he's got this, but you got to be gentle.
Oh, he's got it rough.
Slate. He's got it so hard, you know? And like talking about the problems of the ultra rich or how those are so tough and how we should just accept the scraps of what those allegedly
they give us.
Yeah, we just have to accept what these uber stressed out ultra rich like let us quote unquote trickle down to us out of the benevolence of their rich hearts, you know?
Right.
And so like what is like the lesson to you about this song? What is this telling you about like your life and entertainment and like the social structures that kind of govern our societies?
Yeah, I mean it's just they're always trying to, you know, they've just got you. They've got you. And and
for them.
And you're used to it because you've been fed it your entire life.
Oh my God.
I don't know.
And like the idea that the end of the song where it's like the carcass, the twisted, broken carcass getting out of bed after the end of decades of hard labor is like quite the visual, man, because I bet
just keep going, just keep doing it every day. Keep doing it.
Keep widgeting, you know, keep, you know, like doing your repetitive motion injury job. You know what I mean? I bet everybody out there listening either is that person who is doing that, like the widget labor, or they know somebody who is doing it, and they're having serious physical ailments. Repetitive
Right.
use injuries are so common.
Yeah.
We've talked about slaughterhouse injuries on this show before, and like those repetitive usage injuries, and like trucking and like driving and sitting types of jobs where you're like cranking out the labor for the people who make 10 times what you make.
Yeah.
And it's quite a lesson that the song is like teaching, like from a young age, you are of what your lot in life is.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know. It's a brilliant way to put it. It's like government cartoons. They've it's just always been this way your entire life.
You are here to produce things for me. I'm going to be rich. You are going to barely get by. And here is some screen consumption to pacify you between your breaks until you go back to your labor, where you will then produce for us even more. But consume that screen in the meantime, dear widget producer,
Right.
Oh, boy.
And the funny thing is, I assume if you brought that song up to Chris, he would be like, "Oh, it's such a stupid song."
Yeah.
But it really is. It's saying something that no one else was saying at that point,
dude. And like on the liner notes. So I have where quantity is job number one here, and they have notes on the inside, and all the lyrics are there. So government cartoons, it says when Fred and Barney rubble, but then in parentheses, Chris inserted, please kill me.
Yeah,
so
right.
He's like, he's humorously, saying, oh, these lyrics suck. This is an early song, blah, blah, blah. But man, I don't know.
Some of my favorite thing about their early liner notes is him just his little asides.
Skewering himself. I love it. Well, Mikey, I've kept you here for an hour. And, I kind of want to have like a big takeaway conversation. Tell me a little bit about what like Propaganda has meant to you as a person who cares about the world. What have they meant to you over the last like 25 years or so?
Well, definitely, getting into them back when I got into them, when they, the mid 90s, when you are kind of just finding out about this punk rock thing, but it is a lot of. I was watching an interview with him the other day where they were talking about how because of the label they were on, they kind of had this like built-in jockey kind of skate punk audience and he actually even brings up that they purposely put gay positive feminist on the second record, and he's like, our record sales plummeted, which is so odd to me, because I was like, oh, that's rad that like these guys are trying to put these thoughts out there into the world that are just like, essentially just don't be an asshole, be
a decent person,
be a decent human being, which is a good thing to hear when you're a 16-year-old 17-year-old kid that's just getting into this world of punk rock or whatever, or just kind of coming up and growing up.
Oh, I was a total moron. Total.
Yeah. And you're just hearing, hey, here's a thing you can listen to make you not be such an asshole, and here's some literature you can read if you want to delve further into it. It's just like it's a great thing for a teenager to get his hands on,
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like that did help me become like at least a decent human being, if not like, I'm not an activist by any means. I don't think, I'm not that kind of person that is like leading the charge in a lot of ways, but I do like to follow people that are trying to be decent people,
and being on the right side of history,
and
it's so important.
And it was very refreshing to get into a band that was kind of telling you like, here's here's what's right in our minds. I was like, yeah, that sounds correct to me. Like,
Yeah.
it sounds better than hating a bunch of people.
No lies detected.
Right.
Do you have a favorite as far as like the Propaganda catalog goes? Like where do your tastes lie these days in 2021 as far as the band's music goes?
That's a good question. I think well, so, we have nostalgia answers, which is probably Less Talk, because that really was the start of everything. It's kind of the perfect mix. It's got the couple of John songs that are just great. It's got a lot of things to think about on it. It's got really great pop tunes. It's kind of the perfect record. But, and I mean, God, Today's Empires is the same. It's the perfect record, but it's got perfect pop and the Todd influence of like, we're gonna rock a little more. But I think my favorite. So I'll break it up. But my favorite early record is Less Talk.
Okay.
But I think Supporting Cast might be my favorite late period Propaganda record. Even though that was 15 years ago at this point, 10 years ago.
It's my favorite period.
I think
Cast.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's kind of the best of the early and the late. It's got like really techie metal, but it's also got a lot of good hardcore.
Well, and Humane Meat. I mean,
and
it
Humane Meat
back. It's got the bounciness of the old days.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is like the perfect mix of every kind of, different faction of Propaganda. Like,
yeah, and like we were thinking about this a lot. The way that Victory Lap is almost like a return to a mid '90s sound for the band, but they wrote the lyrics that only a like parenthood and like going through your 40s could produce. It's like a life experience of lyrics, almost written and sung over the top of a Less Talk More Rock style performance. Which I thought was really interesting.
That is great, and that's what I love. Honestly, about the newer, like Descendants records is it's like we're getting the same band playing the same good type of music, but they're singing about real life shit, and we're
things
all
that resonate with me.
Yeah, we're all at the real life shit part of our.
Well, dude,
part of our lives.
Hypercapnium Spasonate is absolutely a bonkers perfect record. I mean, there is not a bad second on that album.
Yeah, it's great. It's great, and it's it's cool because that's I want bands to sing about different shit than they did when they were 14 years old.
Dude, absolutely. I want them to age with me. Aaron from Marathon and Attica was on the show for the Hadrian Collision episode, and he said, this is a band that ages with me lyrically and challenges me musically on every record. And I thought that was just such a nice way of putting it, because the lyrics they get older. It's a generation of lyrics that you're following. And if you think about it like a life story through lyrics, it makes a lot of sense in that regard to me.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Well, Mikey, this has been a real delight. I hope that this was a nice little break in your Groundhog Day existence that we are currently living in right now. And, your new record coming out in a couple of weeks is going to be I'm so excited to get my record, my mystery vinyl, my mystery color in the mail.
Yeah.
I'm really happy that you did that. And I wish that all bands would do that. I was like, this is so great.
Yeah, the Rad Girlfriend Records, who put the record out, they do like 2 colors, and then they do they have the plant just do whatever for a mystery color. And
I am so freaking stoked. Where can people find you and your work? Like, where would you direct people if they want to know more about all of your huge amount of stuff that you've done?
Yeah, I'm at Mikey Erg. At Mikey Erg on all the social media things, and MikeyErg.bandcamp.com has most of my solo material, And I don't know. Good luck figuring out the discography because I can't even figure it out. But every once in a while, I'll be in at a show or something, and I'll hear a song. Why does this sound so? Oh, I played bass on this record.
Oh, this is me.
But yeah, I can't figure that out. But yeah, if you want to check out the tunes, Bandcamp, Mikey Erg Bandcamp, Mikey Erg pretty much on all the other shit. And
Well, they're very splendid to have you on the podcast.
thank you so much. This was awesome.
Don't kiss you when you're young, and forever they embrace. The government supports threats, and evil we must face.
Hey, so my name is Joe DeCarolis. I'm calling to talk about the Where Quality is Job Number One record. I saw your tweet about that. I'm actually pulling my copy of it out now. This thing is very weird, and it confused the hell out of me when I bought it. I think I was like 15 or 16, and my local record store had a small 7-inch section, and I had Less Talk More Rock, and I think I had the first album. I don't know. I definitely had Less Talk More Rock first, and I was like, oh, I want as much propaganda as possible. So so I picked it up, and I realized like, oh, it's two records for $3. This is amazing. And then I sat trying to figure out what the hell was going on, because it lists songs that don't seem to be on the records, and there's no markings on the records except weird etchings. And I think one of them skipped pretty bad. And honestly, I'm having a hard time remembering exactly which songs are on this. I remember seeing the lyrics for White, Proud, and Stupid and thinking like, oh, this is going to be great. And I'm like 90% positive that song is not on either of these records. So this is probably my first exposure as a teenager to punk records fucking with me and my expectations, and not knowing what I was going to get when I picked up a strange record. And it was this fascinating, weird thing that I don't know how much I ever liked listening to it, but I really liked it as an idea. And it kind of got me excited about buying records and finding weird, cool, unique shit in records that happen to be sitting in a 7-inch box somewhere. And, maybe I should listen to this tomorrow. It's been a long time. But yeah, it introduced me to kind of expecting the unexpected with punk records. And especially a band like Propaganda that like to mess with their audience. And it made me respect that more. So yeah, in case you need this information, my name is Joe DeCarolis, spelled DeCarolis. Yeah, thanks for doing this. Yeah.
You've convinced me that a working class stiff, but a proud one is what I am. And for minimum wage in a state-run cage, I should always do the best I fucking can.
Well, that was my chat with Mikey Erg. Thank you so much to Mikey for coming on and chatting about all things propaganda. If anybody hasn't seen Mikey's cover of Resisting Tyrannical Government, you can find that on YouTube. It's fabulous. If I had found that cover earlier, like I said to Mikey during the interview, I probably would have had him on as a guest during that show, but so be it, because having him on as a guest for Government Cartoons, this super deep cut, is absolutely wonderful. So everybody go check out Mikey's new record. It rocks. So Keith, you want to start with the music tonight?
Yeah, Greg, we typically start with guitars. So how about we pick up there?
Sounds great. Tell me what you think.
Well, that opening riff just after the wailing feedback, I think really unique. It has this uneasy melody to it. It's kind of harsh. There's a little bit of a harsh feel, but not in a grating way, more like it's metallic without being like super heavy.
Yeah, and before we move into that, before I talk about that riff, that feedback in the very beginning of the song, to me, it sounds like a cell phone recording of the beginning of Failed Imagineer. You know what I mean? Like, I almost feel like that feedback in the beginning of Failed Imagineer is like hearkening back to this intro on Government Cartoons. So I loved that. I was like, holy smokes, that sounds like Failed Imagineer at the beginning. But that opening riff, dude, is so cool. And that could fit on so many heavy bands records. You know what I mean? Like I was thinking about that. And I was like, oh my God, this sounds like it could be on like a Pepper Keenan era Corrosion of Conformity record.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds like it could like open up an Every Time I Die record. Like I'm thinking about like Fear and Trembling or Roman Holiday from Every Time I Die.
Yeah.
But it could also be like the opening to like Sacrifice, Reanimation. You know, this is like the kind of riff that sort of previews, in my mind, the genre bending propaganda would go through in coming years. Like they always talked about being headbangers first and foremost. And like this opening riff for like the first 42 seconds, I feel like could then after it, whenever that like
Right.
that more straightforward punk beat comes in, like it could easily go into the like a Raining Blood kind of riff, and then into some super speedy thrash drums. Like I feel like the song right before that, like the punk riff comes in, could go in any musical direction. And I really, really love that about this intro is that you're like, are they a thrash band?
Yeah.
Are they a death metal band? Are they a punk band? Like it could go in, are they a hardcore band? It could go in any direction of sound before that that more typical Fat style sound that it goes into.
It's got a bit of a crossover, but also like a knuckle dragging hardcore feel to it.
Totally. Like that's why I was thinking about like Every Time I Die, like whenever I go see them here in Buffalo, Andy Williams, who's a professional wrestler, also comes out like they open up with Roman Holiday, and it's like and I'm just like, oh my God. So this was really reminding me of that as well.
Cool.
So I love this intro. I think it's so neat. And I have to wonder if the song were recorded for How to Clean Everything, if that intro would have been cut to
yeah, it doesn't really fit in the band's that like era of the band. I agree.
Exactly. Like I feel like if they would have done a studio version of this song, that would not have made the cut, which to me would have been a real shame. So I'm so glad that this version exists, but I feel like it could have been, you know, super heavy if they did that like in a proper studio. You know what I mean? That opening intro.
Yeah, Greg, and you mentioned that it jumps into that 90s more straightforward punk rock hook. And to me, that definitely has more of a How to Clean Everything feel to it. Even when the band was playing something a bit more simple, if you compare this to what they do, you know, 2 records later,
Yeah.
it still has their really unique signature stylistic tweaking and experimentation where there may be some unusual chords or timings in which if it is a straightforward punk riff, it's really just a straightforward punk riff for them,
Yeah.
really for everyone else.
Yeah. It's because it's got a lot of skill going on here. Like this is not a super simple song. And you know, it also I love the chorus riff in the song where it goes into like that more halftime beat and then it has those single note plucks.
Yeah.
It's got like this minimalist feel that like a band like the Lawrence Arms does so well, where it's like you play less. And it's got that just those single notes that he's going through. And I love that. It's like a dangly chorus riff that comes back around again later in the song. I love that the chorus repeats because it's so rare in a propaganda song that I really appreciate it in this one.
Right.
And I kind of cherish when there's a revisited section in a propaganda song because they do that so rarely that you really notice it when it happens. And also because that guitar lick is so memorable, you know, it's you can't help but like think about it after you hear it, which is, you know, it gets in your head. And I was talking to Mikey and I was like, dude, it kind of reminds me of like Damn It from Blink-182, where it just gets in your head like it's got that single note catchiness. that lingers in the memory. So I really liked that about this song as well, because I would find myself singing it while I was like making ramen noodles or something, you know?
Yeah. You make ramen a lot, I have to say.
Dude, I spruce it up though. Like I had some like hoisin sauce, baked mushrooms and sweet potatoes that were like
Oh, wow.
doused in sauce and marinated, and I baked those in the oven. And then I had some scallions that I chopped up and some hot sauce. So I made the noodles and then I dumped in all my fixins and I spruce it up.
All while humming this propaganda riff.
Exactly.
Yeah, when Chris sings Indoctrination there and then the song shifts a bit, it becomes far more melodic. Before that, it was, kind of punky. And before that, it was heavy. And I really like how it does slow down in terms of the actual tempo, but in the denseness of the song with that tempo shift there. And it's just super catchy. And I agree. I think that minimalist feel there allows the rest of Chris's vocals, but for that single note or the single note riff to really stand up, and it works because you don't need clearly like another guitar in the back. That the fact that it's just him playing that riff works really, really well.
Yeah, and I really like what Jord's doing here too, because it reminds me of when I was learning to play punk rock drums as a kid. Jord does a lot of things on this song that I was practicing over and over and over. Like I love the big tom fills in the opening chuggy riffs where it's like, and it reminds me of like trying to learn how to do those big sounding fills in the early days of learning drums. Like every drummer has tried to do that big sounding rolling feel where you're going hard on two toms and also trying to do double hits on that kick drum to make it sound like you're hitting tons and tons of drums all at one time. Like, so anytime a band goes boom, like that's the kind of thing that Jord is doing on this song that I was trying to do in like the late 90s. So this is like that opening part where he's like hitting all those toms really hard. It's super nostalgic for me. But this song also has some nice little thrashy starts and stops on the drums as well, where the band comes to a complete stop and then Chris sings a line over nothing. I love that because anybody who's ever tried to play in a punk band will know that doing starts and stops like in the middle of a section, it's an essential skill. You have to do that in songs if you're like playing punk rock in a certain time and place. Like there has to be pauses and stops. Like, you know what I'm thinking of, like Dyer's Eve by like Metallica too on And Justice for All, where it's like, dear mother, dear father. And it's got like those like 20 starts and stops in that song. So you have to have those starts and stops. And so this song is like, to me, like what I was trying to do in the late 90s. And the 80s thrash in the drums is strong in this one too. I love how Jord plays that. But the vocal delivery on this song is really cool. I love the way that Chris uses the space on the song when he fills in gaps with solo vocals that emphasize certain lines over no instruments. Like he delivers two specific lines in a break in the music, which I love. When he says they must replace the government and then, but a proud one in relation to like being a working stiff. I love how he sings over that nothing.
Right.
And you have to respect the quality of this vocal take as well, because this is a live song recorded at a festival in a field, in Winnipeg. A festival they didn't even get paid to play because all the bands that played Core Fest played for free. So this song previews what a strong performer Chris would be vocally live in years to come. He's always talking about some hard shows he's had vocally, like on Patreon. Like he's like, oh, this show was hard for me. These are the struggles I had. But every time I've seen Chris live, he's always spot on. And this recording sounds great vocally. So overall, I really like the music on this tune. And I really would like to see what a produced version at West Beach would have yielded for How to Clean Everything. But I hear there might be another version of this song on a cassette somewhere like recorded maybe like on a 4-track in a basement.
Huh.
But as of right now, this is the only version. If anyone out there has ever heard the other version that may exist from a basement recording, or randomly happens to have another version, let us know. I would love to know. So, should we talk about the lyrics?
Let's get into it, Greg.
All right. So, tell me what you think about these opening lines here, because we're going to go hard on the Flintstones, I think.
So I'll read the first part then here. It says, when Fred and Barney Rubble indoctrinate me in my own home and try to tell me Mr. Slate's got it rough on his corporate throne. Yeah, Mr. Slate, boys, has bigger problems than we've ever known. And a man like that deserves respect, in your respect alone. So what did you find then about the Flintstones, Greg?
So I went super hard on the opening line about the Flintstones, and I read articles and quotes from the Flintstones basically all day yesterday. I wish I could have found more good Barney quotes, but dude, Fred Flintstone is essentially a horrible person. Like, for real. And, you know, in my chat with Mikey, I talked a bit about how crazy this is, that like messaging found within old TV shows can be super damaging,
Right,
to the ways people see the world. And I don't know about you, but like, think about all those days you wasted after school in front of the TV, or in the summertime when you were just home from school. Just the straight absolute trash that was on TV all the time. The Brady Bunch, Step by Step, the Jetsons, I Love Lucy, the Lone Ranger, Beverly Hillbillies, Andy Griffith, whatever, like all that stuff. Just, I was just filling my face and brain with this stuff countlessly all the time, many times a week, for basically my entire adolescence. Like, I still remember the couches that my parents had, because I spent so much time like just watching horrendous television.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the memories that are jumping back to me, and just watching very, very problematic television, So I've got a ton of quotes from The Simpsons or from the Flintstones, but do you have any other thoughts on that kind of stuff?
Yeah, well, I definitely know what you mean, because I would find myself watching a show I had never seen before, and that my family or brothers didn't watch, and I would just finish it. Like, I had this tendency of, if I started an episode of something, and no matter what it was or whatever the content was, and just watching and absorbing, but of course never really thinking about or questioning. And then, related to what you said about the popularity of problematic and troublesome shows, I do want to share a couple things about the background of the Flintstones. So, just given how widely successful and influential the show was, there were 166 episodes total between 1960 and 1966, and it garnered so much success for a while that Hanna-Barbera became the largest producer of animated films. And it was the first animated series to hold a primetime television spot. And it did so for 30 years. It aired the most episodes of any animated show in primetime until eventually it was overtaken by The Simpsons. It became the first animated series to be nominated for a Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Comedy Series. And it was a spoof of The Honeymooners, though the creators disagree as to how intentional that was. Though Jackie Gleason, who created The Honeymooners, considered suing Hanna-Barbera, but he didn't, because he said he didn't want to be the, quote, guy who yanked Fred Flintstone off the air. And so the show is geared toward adults and children in hopes of recreating universal popularity of earlier shows like Tom and Jerry. And think about the impact then of that mass audience. I found out that they even advertised cigarettes on the Flintstones.
Wow.
And the show would do an outro with a commercial where Fred and Barney would avoid yard work by taking a smoke break and smoking Winston cigarettes.
I love it. there are so many Flintstones quotes that you can find out there. And I went through and I started pulling some quotes that I thought might be interesting for people to hear. So here are some 1960s Flintstone quotes, right? So here's one. Why can't they invent something for us to marry instead of women?
Oh, God. Oh.
So that's one. Wilma, where's my razor? Wilma, where's my breakfast? Nobody's pushing me around. My decision stands and I don't want to hear any more about it. So that's one.
Yeah.
2,500 people in Bedrock, and I had to pick this Pebble Brain for a neighbor. So there's one. Wilma says, it's been weeks since you had a good word for anybody or anything, Fred Flintstone. Oh, yeah. What about that thing I said about your mother last week? I said, good riddance. She lives 50 miles away. So that's a fun one. Wilma says, they're arguing about money. I work hard around here and I'm willing to do more. If necessary, I'll get a job to help out. And Fred says, oh, that's a hot one. Wilma says, what's that supposed to mean? And Fred says, pointing his finger in her face, you are too smart to leave this cushy setup you have right now. Truth is, you like things just the way they are.
Yikes.
Yeah. So, there's a few. So I also unfortunately found a few Flintstones movie passages from 1994 with John Goodman.
No.
So I will punish you now with a few more. I found a line where Barney says, so Fred, what am I going to call you now? Boss? Chief? And Fred says, no, simply Your Highness will do. And this just made me sick to my stomach. I knew someone who used to ask people to call him Your Highness, and I hated it then, and I hate it now. And I hate that I read this line in a movie script while preparing for this episode because it only just gave me like nostalgic flashbacks of like disgust. You know what I mean? So, I found another one that says, so where Cliff Vandercave says, look at those pathetic worms burrowing their lives away. Do you know why I'm up here and why they're down there, Miss Stone? Because I have vision. And right now I have a vision of you and me dripping with coconut oil on a beach in Rockapulco with Mr. Slate's fortune to keep us company. And somewhere down there is the ignorant stooge who will make all my schemes come true, which I think really aligns well to the lyrics in this song.
Yeah, no kidding.
About using workers as pawns to accomplish something that is unsightly, untoward, evil, conniving. So when I was digging this up, I found an article from 2010 in the Toronto Star, which was published on the 50th anniversary of the Flintstones coming out. And it's called Why the Flintstones is Evil. And it came out in the Toronto Star. So everybody should go search Toronto Star, Why the Flintstones is Evil. And here's a little snippet from the article. The key to the Flintstones was its surfeit of hate. Fred, if truth be told, hated Wilma, who hated Fred, who hated his job, where he was hated by Mr. Slate. Barney didn't hate anyone, but everyone treated Barney like a flesh pinata. Hate was the
Oh my God.
Hate was the key, and lies. Every single episode of the Flintstones hinged on some sort of untruth, someone else prompting shenanigans.
Yeah.
Modern research shows that Faces of Death had a less deleterious effect on childhood delinquency than just 10 minutes exposure to the Flintstones. If you took Fred and Wilma as your marriage role models, you're divorced now. You might be in prison. Depends if your plan to plant subliminal messages in your husband's brain while he slept actually worked, coercing him to commit robbery on your behalf. And the article hilariously has several major takeaways that anyone who watched and internalized the Simpsons or the Flintstones quote unquote humor would take away. So here's a takeaway. A man can make a living wage and support his family doing a job he despises, which also happens to be environmentally unsustainable. Next, if you are caught in a lie, as Fred inevitably was in minute 7 of every episode, tell a more outrageous lie. This is how Mussolini got into power. And people might be thinking of someone else now as well. Here's another takeaway: that if your household, time spent with your family is wasted time. Time spent golfing, bowling, or carousing with a bunch of idiots in buffalo skin toques revives the flagging spirit. You have a best friend for a reason, and that reason is to bully him mercilessly. So these are some of the takeaways that I found about the Flintstones. And so I was thinking about Chris Hannah watching the Flintstones and analyzing all of this as a young person, you know? And, if this song was made in like 93, I mean, he might have been like 21, 22 years old when he wrote these lyrics. And to come away with those conclusions about that show at that age, it's really impressive,
And something I thought of just in terms of everything that you were sharing is a contrast of the Flintstones with The Simpsons, the show that eventually kind of unseated it. Just think of how different, like say Mr. Burns and Slate are depicted, right? Like, not to say that The Simpsons are without controversy or without problem, but he is like openly the villain, like
Yeah.
the boss, wealthy, elite, aristocratic, polluting, super villain, right? Versus like maybe before it was just kind of in every boss. Maybe it was so normalized. So just thinking of the difference there and how that has shifted some. Wow, those other quotations, Greg, kind of left me somewhat speechless and not even thinking of that show as I would have thought, yeah, that's harmless and that's a pretty simple cartoon, and there's really no issue in letting a kid watch that.
I know, right?
Overlooking the sexism and like the almost like nihilism.
Yeah. And like if you're a parent in the 90s and your kid puts on the Flintstones and like Dino and Bam Bam are running around and Barney's being a goofball, like if you're a parent in the 90s, you're not going to like stop your kid from watching that. And like what your kid is then doing is they're internalizing messages of how women are spoken to,
Right.
How bosses are depicted, how employees are depicted, what the purpose of employees is to serve bosses. And those are messages that creep in and take hold in ways that we can't really predict, and take hard work and intellectual energy to expend to sort of reframe and reshift the ways that we think about the world, which, I mean, that's what this song is all about. So it's really kind of an impressive bit of lyrics here.
Yeah, I want to jump back to that idea of defending the boss, Mr.
Yeah.
Slate. Like, you have to wonder, Greg, why is it that so many people are willing to side with modern day robber barons?
Yeah.
Where this veneration of like the ultra wealthy came from, and not just our celebration of corporate elites, but also our submission to them, which you can clearly hear in the lyrics, but also in the quotes that you read. And this might seem like an unrelated tangent, but Joe Biden's inaugural ceremonies come to mind because the speakers, the songs, the imagery, the rhetoric of America's rebirth was all a really well-crafted display of state propaganda, which of course, like, people balked at the idea of calling it such, mistakenly thinking that the term propaganda is only reserved for the paintings of Hitler as a knight in shining armor, or some other like really obvious example, like something that our enemies do, but not us. It's incredibly dangerous to only equate that term with the over-the-top examples of art and speech that depict and that carry some message of propaganda, because then we can't spot the more insidious versions, like Joe Biden's framing of his election as a rebirth, or here as the Flintstones. So a good example of this is something that I like to ask I asked my students this week. So for the average American taxpayer who made $50,000 in 2012, I asked them how much of that went toward government assistance programs like welfare. And Greg, the answers were ridiculous. And though eighth graders don't really have a firm understanding of taxes, I mean, I don't, and I'm 36, their answers range from anywhere from like 1,000 to half a person's yearly income went to things like government assistance for food. But I bet you if you like polled a random person, like an adult taxpayer, the results probably wouldn't be that different. But the answer is like in 2012, the average American taxpayer who made about $50,000 is 36 bucks. That's it, 36, and then $6 for other social safety net programs. So then I asked him about how much the same American would pay in corporate welfare subsidies, tax breaks, and incentives. And the answer in 2012 was $6,000 to billion-dollar transnational corporations. And if you don't remember, I have a lot of nausea-inducing examples of this in our head, chest, or foot episode. I mean, the failed F-35 stealth bomber project has cost taxpayers $1.5 trillion, while there's 11 million children living in poverty in America. And my point is ultimately, where did we get this idea of the welfare queen, of I'm not working so someone else can stay at home? Where do these ideas come from that end up framing, how we see fellow human beings, how we vote, how we process and the world around us and interact with others? Well, I mean, some of it, obviously not all of it, is going to be the messaging here that we don't even see as messaging.
Yeah, I really am troubled year after year as I, careen through this lifetime that I have about the ways that all of us in the country seem to pile on and, bully and trash talk people who have nothing,
right?
While people at the very top who have everything, who do whatever they want, who get away with everything, just continue to, put into our minds that the people below us are the people we should be really concerned about. It's a fleecing. It is a catastrophic social break where the people who are in the middle are constantly side-eyeing the people on the bottom.
Yeah.
While the people at the very top convince the people in the middle that the people at the bottom is who they should be looking at. And there's no, I feel like there's no reasoning people who have these beliefs that the people below are the ones to be suspicious of. I feel like there's no reasoning somebody out of that position. Do you know what I mean? It's like, because they all think that I'm working super hard, that I can barely get by. And so the people below me, they're just not doing enough. And where did that idea come from? It came from somebody a hell of a lot richer than that person in the middle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no fact-checking article from Reuters or BBC is going to change that's their worldview.
Yeah.
It's not going to shift that.
Yeah.
So let's get to the next part, Greg.
Yeah. So the lyric is indoctrination to keep you in your place, brainwashing to enslave the human race. They'll get you when you're young, and forever they embrace a government self-portrait, an evil we must face and replace.
So I want to jump off that part, Greg. We'll get you when they're young. They'll get you when you're young. And that had me thinking about Disney again.
Yeah.
And specifically with Disney's propaganda that it created for the U.S. government. So in the 40s, Disney was a fledgling company. Fantasia bankrupted the studio. Pinocchio also lost a ton of money. And then there were subsequent clashes between animators and Walt Disney himself, until the government contracted the company to produce 32 animated shorts amidst the Second World War. And the commissioned films were a mix of education and propaganda, but it was the propaganda which brought the full weight of Disney's animators and artists and directors and writers, like its creative powers. And I found out, actually, this is pretty unusual. that after Pearl Harbor, the attack on Pearl Harbor, 500 U.S. Army troops occupied Walt Disney Studios in Burbank, California for 8 months. And it's the only time that a Hollywood studio was under military occupation. And it was to protect a nearby Lockheed station in fear that there would be an attack on the continental United States.
Dude.
Now, Greg, like I'm all for fighting fascism, but it also matters how it's done. And promoting nationalism or elitism or racism to do so in cartoons is incredibly problematic. And related to that, if you've not seen Dr. Seuss's political cartoons, I recommend giving that a gander. Brain Pickings has a really good write-up about his wartime efforts, just like Walt Disney's. But to get back to Disney, I stumbled across a book called The Mouse That Roared by scholar and cultural critic Henry Giroux. I don't know how to say his last name.
Giroux, yeah.
Okay. So he argues that Disney pitches itself as an entertainment industry while cloaking its intentional efforts to promote like specific social and political and economic agendas. And I found this quote. It says, "Before becoming an observer of this form of children's culture, I accepted the largely unquestioned assumptions that animated films stimulate imagination and fantasy, reproduce an aura of innocence, and in general are good for kids. In other words, such films appeared to be vehicles of amusement, a highly regarded and sought after source of fun and joy for children. However, within a very short period of time, it became clear to me that the relevance of such films exceeded the boundaries of entertainment." So I found a few examples of his criticism of what he says is basically veiled propaganda pumped out by Disney. Guru argues that Aladdin, for example, it has exchanged the overtly nationalist imagery of like the United States that's at the center of its earlier propaganda with more covert messaging as like the nascence of US involvement in the Middle East was taking place. He interprets Aladdin as the main character's struggle for liberation from barbaric traditions. And the opening song like includes the line, "It's barbaric, but hey, it's home." And he says it's a justification for US intervention, portraying Middle Eastern culture as being flawed and constraining, and therefore encouraging rebellion against those traditions. The positive characters themselves are even Americanized, while the villains perpetuate racist stereotypes, and the whole story appropriates the past, othering anyone else who isn't white to be able to rewrite the past, possibly the present, and even the future. And he gives other examples of this with like the loss of native land is completely absent from the story of Pocahontas. In The Little Mermaid as well, Ariel has to literally lose her voice in order to win a prince.
Yeah. I'm really glad that you found Henry Giroux because so he's a Canadian scholar. I'm not sure if he's American or if he just works in Canada or if he's Canadian but also works in Canada. But anybody out there listening who, if you're a fan of Chris Hedges, you'd probably really like the work of Henry Giroux as well. I read tons of his work in grad school, and you just said that, and I was like, oh my God, Henry Giroux! I love Henry Giroux. And so I may have to go downstairs and dig through my grad school book box. So thanks for that. You just gave me tons more work. But, you know, it's really interesting what you said about all those examples. And it's very troubling the ways that these messages can covertly slip into the ways that we see the world, especially if you grow up in a certain place, the ways that you think about other countries when you grow up somewhere is really interesting. Like for me, I'm really glad that I live in a city on the border because for my kid, going across the border to another country is like totally normal. You know what I mean? Like she's 7 and she's been out of the country 30 times, you know,
right? Yeah.
It's like not even a big deal at all. So, you know, whenever I think about this particular line, I just think about some of the heinous evils of capitalism as well. You know, the idea of like the happy worker is like burned into the minds of children from a young age. But like, let's face it, the amount of people who wind up doing their full passion in life for a job is minuscule, microscopic. Like, I found a study from Gallup in 2013 that was analyzed by the Washington Post that reported that only 13% of people in a worldwide sample spanning 140 countries is, quote, actively engaged in their jobs, emotionally invested in making the organization succeed and grow. And more than 60% are not engaged. And the remaining 20+% are actively disengaged, meaning they do not care about what they do on a day-to-day basis in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
The numbers are a little better for the US and Canada. So 29% of Canadians and Americans reported being actively engaged in their work. 24% of Australians and Kiwis reported being actively engaged. But still, 29% of Americans and Canadians report active engagement and care in their professions. And another 2013 study found that 55% of Americans would like to change careers. You know, but it's like, but then we have to ask the question, why do people stay in jobs they hate for decades? And there are so many crystal clear answers to this. In the US, it's because if we leave, we get tossed from health insurance and stand the risk of massive financial catastrophe if an unforeseen health problem arises. But also think of the total grind of looking for a job, dude. The endless resume uploading and retyping your resume into every single job application data bank. The total lack of communication from human resources departments letting you know if you're a candidate or not. The waiting, the huge gaps between paychecks. If you leave one job and start another, you might be without a paycheck for 8 to 12 weeks. Like, it's insane to consider how challenging it is to change jobs for many, many people. And I remember in 2012 and 2013, when I was like trying to leave a grad school program that I wasn't committed to anymore, I sent out more than 75 job applications and I got 2 interviews. Like, people at the top have set up the system of changing jobs to be so mind-bogglingly hard and annoying that only the most committed can often actually get themselves to go through the process. Think about how much you would have to hate your job right now for you to go on a job search. You know what I mean? It's
Yes.
Finding a job is a full-time job. And if you're working a job and you have a family at home and you hate your job, looking for a new job while having a job and having a family and having responsibilities is not a doable task for a lot of people. It takes a superhuman will to move jobs. And if you can't muster up that will, you stay in your place. And which that speaks to the next line of the song. But also it's like, what if I leave a job and my new job is worse?
Right.
You know? Or oftentimes because like people get like a decent salary at their job that they take, that they wind up hating, that they overextend themselves financially with car payments, cable, smartphones, utilities, too much square footage in a house. People might also stay because they got an education at age 22 to qualify themselves for something. And the thought of going through all of that expense and hassle of retraining and taking out possibly more student loans, like at say 35 years old, in an age of unaffordable education to maybe not even wind up better financially, it's too much, man. Like, I think about all the reasons people stay, and it makes sense to me. Like, there are so many sad reasons we get handcuffed into doing what we hate. And if anybody out there is hearing this who hates what they do, you have my deepest empathy, because there are so many reasons to not leave the job you hate. There's no guarantee it's going to work out. And it's like scary as hell, man. You know what I mean? Oh boy. So we got this next lyric. You've convinced me that a working class stiff, but a proud one is what I am. And that for minimum wage in this state-run cage, you should always do the best that I can. Just do what I'm told till I'm too old to move my broken, twisted carcass out of bed. I love that line.
Yeah.
Don't take a stand, just take commands until I'm dead. What do you think about this line?
Man, Greg, yeah, so much of that is relevant right now. It feels like worker bees being told to trudge through the hazards of working in a pandemic just to make sure the economy
Ugh.
isn't jeopardized, while also so privileged people could have a sense of normalcy. Um, I also thought back to last year, a congressman from Indiana, Trey Hollingsworth, said that he was willing to let more Americans die to save the economy. And I have a rather, again, another nausea inducing quote here. It is always the American government's position to say, in the choice between the loss of our way of life as Americans and the loss of life of American lives, we have to always choose the latter, which is mind boggling because, like, the way of life is also a cause of the loss of American lives.
And the killing of the planet, I might add.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, why do people not see having to work harder to have less as a bad thing? I don't get this. And the thing is, it's not like people aren't working and aren't working harder. In the last 20 years, the economy has grown by 60%.
Jeez.
Productivity has surged, but income and wages have been mostly stagnant for most Americans. And if the median household income had kept pace with the economy since 1970, it would actually be $92,000 and not $50,000. And American paychecks are bigger than 40 years ago, but their purchasing power is almost identical to that time. So, increase in real value of the minimum wage since 1990 is 21%, but increase in cost of living since 1990 is 67%. So this is when people tell me, like, someone just recently said, "Oh, when I was working as a busboy, making $5 an hour in the '70s, realizing that adjust that for inflation, and they make me more than I do, as a 14-year educator in the classroom today, and that how everything has gotten more expensive. That uh, 1 year's earning at the minimum wage right now is $15,000, and the income required for a single worker to have actual economic security is like 30,000. And the US and only 8 other countries do not require paid annual leave. And there are only 5 other countries that also don't require paid maternity leave. And if you take a moment, if you can pause right now and look up economist Mark Perry's chart of the century, this went viral last year or the year before. I don't remember, time runs together. It tracks the changing cost of goods, services, and wages in the US between 1998 and 2019. So food has increased by 60%, medical care services and childcare by 120, college tuition and textbooks by around 180%. And from the mid 60s to the 80s, the cost of a 4-year degree was about 40,000, which was also the average income for someone with a 4-year degree. Now the US Census shows that the cost of room, board, and tuition is closer to $95,000, while the average bachelor degree earnings is about 45,000. So for the first time in the history of the US, the majority of the unemployed Americans actually attended college. And there are now more people without jobs who went to college than those who did not, meaning there's no financial incentive to do so. Hospital visit costs increased by over 200%. But here's the kicker. Meanwhile, the things that have gotten cheaper are clothes, furniture, cell phones, and toys and televisions. All of
Yeah.
those things have gotten cheaper, not the things that we need, but the things that keep us pacified, just like not changing our job because it's easier to be stuck in whatever miserable situation we were in than to actually do something about it. We have those things, and we're kind of pacified and we're entertained, so we forget about everything else. And I found this from the 2018 World Inequality Report. It says from 1980 to 2016, the poorest half of the US population has seen its share of income steadily decline, and the top 1% have grabbed more. In Europe, it was actually the trend was just about the trend can't be observed. Like the same thing did not happen in Europe. In 1980, the top 1% share of income was about 10% in both Western Europe and the US. But since then, the two have severely diverged. In 2016, the top 1% in Western Europe had about a 12% share of income compared to 20% in the United States. And in the US, the bottom 50% income share fell from more than 20% in 1980 to 13. So if you kind of imagine, just imagine two lines crossing, making it an X on a line graph, and that's what's happening. The share of the smallest, wealthiest people is now at the top, and the share of the masses, right, is now at the bottom. And the income inequality trajectory observed in the United States is largely due to massive educational inequalities combined with a tax system that grew less progressive despite a surge in the top labor compensation since the 1980s and in top capital incomes in the 2000s. Continental Europe, meanwhile, saw a lesser decline in its tax progressivity, while wage inequality was also moderated by educational and wage setting policies that were relatively more favorable to low and middle income groups. In both regions, income inequality between men and women has declined, but remains particularly strong at the top of the distribution. And for a perhaps funnier version of this, just look up the charts that someone made on Twitter, where they put Ronald Reagan's face on a whole bunch of charts of income inequality, of the cost of living, all of these different economic factors. You can see right when Reagan became president, and these ideas of trickle down and massive tax cuts for the wealthy that, of course, don't benefit the masses, though they argue that they do. I come back to that idea of vilifying people and expecting them to work 2 jobs or 3 jobs just to be able to have what people had in the 70s doing half as much.
Yeah. Well, and I'm really glad that you were looking at that stuff, because I was looking at minimum wage stuff too. Whenever the word minimum wage popped up in this lyric, I was like, I got to figure out some cost of living, some inflation stuff. And the arguments around minimum wage right now in the US are incredible and sickening.
Right.
First of all, nowhere in the country can a person earn the current federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour and achieve affordable housing, which is defined as $7, which is defined as 30% of one's income spent on housing, right? The NLIHC's report calculates a housing wage that estimates how much a full-time worker must make in order to afford a fair market rental without spending more than 30% of their income. And for 2019, the housing wage would be $22.96 per hour as a wage to afford a 2-bedroom rental, and $18.65 for a 1-bedroom rental. So that is crazy when you think that the federal minimum wage is $7.25 and a person would need to make $18.65 an hour to afford a 1-bedroom apartment on average nationally. Like, it varies by where you are, of course. Like, I looked at my home state of Missouri, and it says that you can make $16 an hour as the minimum wage in order to make that 1-bedroom, right? So even that is problematic, because the federal minimum wage that the government is, bashing their heads against the wall right now is $15 an hour.
Right.
So in my home state of Missouri, which is a cheap place to live, for the most part, it would be $16 an hour. And the federal minimum wage that they're, arguing about nonstop right now is $15 an hour. So you're still below the threshold of even a cheap place to live if this thing goes through, which means if it did go through, which it won't, if it did, we're a generation away from seeing it raised again. And even then isn't a guarantee, because, these things take forever. So Even if the federal minimum wage rose to 15, that person would have tremendous difficulty affording housing that doesn't go beyond 30% of their income.
Right.
These wages are so catastrophically below the cost of living adjustments for the times that we live in. And our country is only getting worse on these metrics. So I'm glad you said 1970, because I found a statistic from 1968 reported by the Tampa Bay Times that said in 1968, a full-time worker earning minimum wage could actually support a family of 3
Wow.
above the poverty line. Okay.
Wow.
So if you earned minimum wage in 1968 nationally, you could support a family of 3 above the poverty line. Today, that same worker would earn less than the poverty line for a family of 2.
Yeah. And what's crazy about that, Greg, is going back to the idea of not being able to change the culture,
Yeah.
individuals' beliefs about it. If you told someone that today, and I've literally done that, and I've shared details like this, people will respond with, well, they shouldn't be able to have those things today with just a minimum wage job.
I'm amazed at how much Americans hate other Americans.
No kidding.
We hate each other. Like, we hate the fact that people need to pay for stuff in this country. It's crazy how against each other we actually are. And, but say you do earn a good living, right? But still hate your job. When you decide to not risk that security and not change jobs, you resign yourself to a lifetime of getting through work so that you can basically go home and doom scroll or zone out in front of the TV, because you'll be so depressed with how much you hate your job that if you earn enough and you aren't willing to take the risk to go and do something you love, you're essentially resigning yourself to a lifetime of depression.
Right.
But you have enough money, but you hate being alive, And so you do that until you die. Like that, this isn't funny to me. It is sad. It's only sad. Like whenever I say these things out loud, I get sadder and sadder about the state of the place that we live. Because I think about how much we hate each other, how much we are willing to vote against each other, and how the people who have enough, who hate their jobs, are just essentially resigning themselves to a life of depression. So it's like we have a mass problem of sadness and poverty on our hands. Oh, okay. Well, and I also think about some other stuff too, like this work until you're dragging your carcass out of bed imagery.
Yeah, what a line.
Dude, that's crazy. Like, so I started thinking about like, what does this look like in work? And I looked up the term, and it's repetitive strain injury, RSI. This is an insanely common thing. According to OSHA, which is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, a government agency, RSI affects 1.8 million workers per year, right? One government study put the cost of RSI between 17 billion and 20 billion a year in lost productivity. 600,000 workers take time off each year to recuperate and treat their repetitive strain injuries. We're talking about things like carpal tunnel, or like elbow injuries from like repetitive, like if you work in a slaughterhouse, like you're cutting the same piece of the chicken the whole time.
My mom's just had like 2 surgeries on her hand in the last year and a half. She was off of work for almost an entire year because she breaks down pallets in the like the warehouse of a hospital, and that same movement over and over. So now her hand is getting better, but now it's her shoulder.
Yeah.
And now she's had to take off work because of that. And it's proven to be the same. Like that's what it is.
Yep.
The physical therapist said it's the work doing this, but she can't afford not to work, which means she's just grinding herself down to the nubs.
Yeah, exactly. And think about her doing that now. How old is she?
She's in her late 50s. So she's just under 60.
So say she's 58 years old, right? If you're 58 years old and you're pretty healthy, chances are you might have a good 30 years ahead of you. So think about retiring at 66, 67, and then having another 18 to 20 years of excruciating daily agonizing pain to where you don't even want those 16 or 17 or 18 more years. You're just like, well, I'm pretty done because I only live in pain. And I think about that all the time. Even my buddy who's a teacher in Missouri had hand surgery for his carpal tunnel from working on his computer all the time,
Mm-hmm.
from the tiny laptops that the school districts give away for their faculty to do their full-time jobs on, which are tiny 12-inch monitors with tiny keyboards that are not ergonomically friendly. And all of a sudden, my friend who's in his mid 40s, all of a sudden can't move his hand, can't grip the steering wheel in his car. And it's insane. Like, another thing is, like, I think about like truckers too, all that sitting,
Right.
all that strain on your eyes too. According to the data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, long haul truckers experience injuries and illnesses that involve days away from work at a rate of 355 incidents per year per 10,000 full-time workers, which is more than double those of other hazardous professions like construction, extraction, farming, fishing, forestry. And I just think about all of the injury and lost productivity and human depression and sadness and physical therapy and uncertainty for the future and stress over money that folks in this country deal with every freaking day. And it makes me so sick that we hate each other as much as we do because we're preventing people's lives from getting better actively. Every single election cycle, we keep the same bullshit going.
And not just, I think, Greg, like the physical injuries for work that we don't like, we don't enjoy, we don't feel fulfilled by, but can't even like, make ends meet with that. So the carcass from that, like the injured human side of it, but also I just think of age there. So research now shows that if people are 65 or older, there is a 75% more likely chance that the person is going to be working than someone in the same age group just a generation ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the retirement age goes up constantly, doesn't go down. And I, for one, have no hope of ever actually retiring. Like, I just do not believe that will happen for me. I cannot allow myself to believe that I will be able to actually retire, because then if it doesn't happen, I won't be disappointed.
Right.
I just assume I'll work until I'm dead. And that's essentially all there is to it. So anyway, do you have any more thoughts on the lyrics for this tune?
I think we can leave it with with that positive image of both of us working until we are incontinent and we're messing ourselves and we're bumbling in our classrooms or elsewhere. Well, let's stop there and talk about some YouTube comments.
So there were slim pickings on this song.
Yeah,
man.
I know. Yeah, I noticed that.
I found a couple, but someone wrote, "When propaganda was good."
I found that, and I don't want to argue with that person, but I would really like to sit down and hear what they have to say and why they say that. I'm really curious.
Yeah, I kind of felt bad. I kind of felt sad for that person that that propaganda ended at 1993 Corefest. I wasn't aware of that. Someone else wrote, this is their favorite track off the double 7-inch, and this is a badass song. Did you find any others?
The only other one I found, Greg, was your comment on a folky acoustic harmonica cover from Quantum McLeod. And that was one of the videos that came up. And I'm like, I guarantee Greg commented on this. And I scroll down and there you were the day before.
Yeah, I private messaged that guy on Twitter too, asking if we could put some clips from that song in the episode. So, do you have a teachable lesson? Like, what do you take away from this song after thinking about it ad nauseum for the last week?
Yeah, Greg, I think my teachable moment here for myself and maybe the lesson I want to impart to the listeners is to never really take things we encounter just at face value and to try to unpack the things that have shaped us when we were young or, even now. The TV shows, the books in our childhood homes, the words our parents used, the names given to places where we live that might have erased the people in the history that came before. the narratives in our textbooks and who is left out of them, like all of that is important. And even if we, as people as a whole, we're greater than the sum of our parts, those parts still helped shape the way that we view the world and our place in it. And if a cartoon about an anachronistic Stone Age family wants us to be subservient, complacent, and unquestioning cogs, then what about the politicians and the corporate entities? What are they doing to make sure that we don't disrupt their wealth and power?
Love it. Well, to me, like our place in society, which we've talked about before, is hard to change, right? It's pretty easy to go down in your station in life. It's very hard to climb up to a new station in life. And changing stations is getting harder with each passing year in the US. The fact that we have to accept basically scraps while our government bombs other places is the tragedy of profits over people in our society. Also, these are some pretty friggin' insightful lyrics for being written by Chris when he was like 21 or 22. It's very astute analysis and observations for what entertainment encourages us to accept or not accept about our lives.
Right.
And it took me much longer than being 21 or 22 to figure out the lessons Chris is stating here in this song. This song gives me a sense of empathy and compassion for people who grind it out day after day, year after year, forever, because they don't have any other choice. Opportunity is not equal. Access to opportunity is not equal. People at the bottom will always be shamed for grasping at the things the very wealthy will never have to think twice about. It's everywhere. Next time you see one of those like horrendous memes, for example, that say, give a rich person $1,000 and they'll come back with 10,000. Give a poor person $1,000 and they'll come back with an iPhone. Just think about how disgusting that is. You're shaming a person for getting the tool that they need in order to be successful in this world where everything, including getting every job, is done on the internet. And without the tool to do that, you're just insulting somebody for getting the tool that somebody else doesn't even have to think twice about. They go on the freaking Apple Store's website and they have it delivered to their house 2 hours later, and it doesn't make a difference in their bank account at all. It's like, this song is really encouraging me to be empathetic about the struggles of so many people in our society. And I'm talking about people to make decent money. Like if you would picture somebody making $35,000 a year, that's not nothing, but it kind of is. When the cost of living skyrockets year after year, and you say to somebody, oh, I make 35,000. But if you were alive in the 90s and you said to somebody, I make $35,000, that means something so profoundly different now than it did in 1994. You can't even comprehend how much different that money is now than 94 unless you really like crunch the numbers. So I'm just thinking about how what was good money when I was a kid is now like pennies, it feels like. And that money goes so fast. So anyway, those are some of the things that I'm thinking about for this song. Would you like to rate it? Do the honors?
Well, Greg, I rank How to Clean Everything last in the band's discography, and I've made no secret that it's my least favorite album. And not just in the band's releases, but it's an album I just don't particularly enjoy like the same way that you do. And I don't think I'm right. I don't think others are wrong if they put How to Clean Everything or something else from that earlier part of the band's discography in the numero uno spot. I just don't listen to a ton of punk like you do. And of course, there are staples that you and I agree upon, like Bad Religion being one, but I really wish this song was on How to Clean Everything, even
Totally.
if it's not my favorite album. I really have almost no musical gripe with it, given what the band had released at that point. I like the vocals a lot. I think your closing statement helps explain like what the band was getting at in a way that it's a cliche term, but ahead of its time. There's humor that doesn't feel gimmicky. The song is unfortunately still relevant. It's also fun. So, given that, again, given the context of its time and how I rank the band's songs as a whole, I'm going to say a 2, but it's a 2 that I like.
Yeah, I'm also going to give it a 2. And I am just going to straight up say that I like this song considerably more than several songs on How to Clean Everything.
For sure.
Like, the fact that this isn't on How to Clean Everything is a massive missed opportunity for me. And I'm really sad that that kind of didn't work out. I don't know the story behind it. I don't particularly care. But if this song was on How to Clean Everything instead of like, I Want You to Want Me, or something like that, I would have been so stoked. I think that if this song had a proper studio recording at West Beach when they did How to Clean Everything and it was on the LP, it would probably be within my top 3 favorite songs on that record if there was a proper studio version.
Yeah.
I think it has a fantastic, unique variety of sounds. It has that chugging metal. It's got some wild speed. It's got that super catchy guitar lick that's probably among the most memorable guitar licks in the entire Propaganda catalog. If you think about like Singy, that you can like hum to yourself as you're driving down the street. And, you know, I bet a How to Clean Everything studio version would have been pretty incredible and would have made this today among the most well-loved Propaganda songs of the 90s. So I'm giving it a 2, but I also really like it. And I think that if it was on How to Clean Everything, it would be in my top few favorite songs on the whole entire album.
Well said.
So that's our episode on government cartoons, from where quality is job number 1 and where quantity is job number 1. This is a fabulous one. I'm really glad that we got to do a massive deep cut for our for this episode. Thank you again to Mikey Erg, the fantastic Mikey Erg, for coming on the show to geek out with me. You can find Mikey on Bandcamp and on Twitter and all kinds of places, so go find his work. If you want to find us, you can email us at propagandipod@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at propagandipod. And thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.
Yo, when Propaganda played in Sydney in 1997, in between songs, there was a person in the crowd and they yelled out, "Die for the flag," and Chris was like, "Who the fuck said that?" And everyone was laughing, and then Todd started singing, "Well, let me get this straight." That's my quantity double 7-inch story. Cheers.
Yeah, Mr. Slate's got bigger problems than you or I could ever know. And a man like that deserves respect. Your respect alone. Indoctrination, keep you in your place. Brainwashing to enslave the human race. They'll get you while you're young, and forever they embrace. The government's self-portrait, neither we must face and replace. Well, you've convinced me that a working class stiff, but a proud one is what I am. And for minimum wage in this state-run cage, I'll always do the best that I can. Yeah, no, do what I'm told to. I'm too old to move my twist. twisted carcass out of bed. Yeah, just don't take a stand, just take commands till I'm dead. Indoctrination to keep you in your place.
Until I'm dead. Indoctrination to keep you in your place. Brainwashing to enslave the human race. They'll kiss you when you're young, and forever they embrace. Our government's of portraits, and evil we must face and replace.